So I guess it's important to contextualize this whole thing for anyone who's listening who isn't familiar with the process. So um, in the shamanic traditions that come from the Peruvian Amazon specifically, the way that the healers out here work is, especially if they're working with ayahuasca,
Mm.
is to have periods of deep immersion with different master plants, plantas maestras or maestros, which are teacher plants.
Mm.
And these plants can be, some of them are big trees, some of them are little flowers, there's a whole range. Those processes of deep immersion are, as so many shamanic initiations are, processes of isolation. You take yourself away from mundane life, you take yourself away from the community, go into the forest and sit in your little hut and give up stimulation. So we're taking salt, we're taking oil, we're taking sweet, we're taking all of the stimulation out of the diet. I actually, in this recent dieta, I fasted a lot. Uh, After about 4 days, it became clear that I was only going to eat boiled potatoes for the whole 3 weeks. And I just, yeah, I
Okay.
fasted. Yeah, I was just fasting. And then every couple of days, I'd have a potato and then I'd go back into fasting some more. And this is really just to create as much energetic space as possible to connect with the physical, but also the energetic intelligence of the plant that you are dieting with, that you are communing with. And the role of the maestro, the shaman, the human that's helping facilitate this deep communion, is to basically open up the energetic line of connection with those spirits through their own connection and plug your energetic body in to that current.
Mm.
So that's done often in an ayahuasca ceremony. And also that functions to create a whole lot of protection. So you're under the protection of that maestro, that shaman, that curandero, and then yeah, with time, it takes time to make the connection and to just spend your days
Mm.
praying, fasting in silence, meditating, visiting the physical plant if you can, which I was able to do, which was really, really beautiful. And then we, in this retreat, had a bunch of ceremonies as well. So I think we had 5 or 6 or 8. I actually can't remember how many ceremonies there were. But then we're coming into ceremony and the curandero is working on us, is singing, is praying, is cleaning us, is working with the spirits to clean out the stuff that's been cleaned out, to continue protecting us, and to keep weaving that connection deeper and deeper and deeper.
Okay. I have a question about dieting specific plants. My
Mm.
understanding is you can diet any plant. Like, so you could do a dieta of rosemary
Mm-hmm.
or kawakawa or
Mm-hmm.
rose.
I have done that. Yeah, rosemary and rose, not kawakawa. Theoretically, you could, but what's important to recognize is that every plant has different medicine, has a different spirit, and not all of them would be necessarily beneficial depending on what you're trying to achieve.
Mm.
Some plants are master teachers. And when we're building up this energetic scaffolding of the dieta, it's very useful and important to diet with plants that are going to well prepare you to navigate the shamanic reality in specific ways. Some plants have a lot more tests and tricks, and they might be very protective, but they might also set us up with more potential to do harm, for example.
Like,
Whereas other plants, yeah,
like what?
whereas
What?
like There are certain plants, for example, that are here in the Amazon that are used to combat black magic.
Mm.
But also, if you were to diet with those plants, you would potentially be, because like resonates with like, you would potentially be presented with the potential to cause harm because you're attuning to that frequency, right?
Mm.
And it requires a high level of discernment and experience and robust personal agency in order to navigate those tests and not just spiral off into some kind of train wreck of harm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Okay, so what are some of the plants that you've dieted
Mm.
previously?
Previously, so I started doing this work just over 10 years ago. My first dieta was with a plant called Bobinsana,
Mm.
very well loved tree that's in the mimosa family. So Bobinsana has this incredible relationship with the waters. It grows on the rivers and it has these kind of very flexible branches. So when it drapes into the rivers, its branches will bend but won't break. So
Mhm.
there's a watery quality to the plant. It's very associated with opening the heart, with emotional cleansing. It has a lot of like romance and love medicine associated with it as well. So Bob and Sana was my first dieta.
So would you say, just like knowing, because you know me quite well, would you say that's not a plant that I need to diet because I have like that flowy quality to me anyway?
Are we back?
Hi, we're back. Yeah, would you not recommend that I would need to diet that plant because I have that flowy, the heart open quality anyway? So maybe it's not the medicine that I need. Is that how you'd kind of work with it, or?
Yeah, the diagnostic process is pretty interesting.
Hmm.
Um, Often what happens is that in the modern way of doing things, there'll be a consultation. So you'll talk to the maestro and tell them what's going on with you in your life, what you're trying to work on, what you're trying to learn. And they might have an idea of which plants would be suitable. Uh, and then in ceremony, the diagnostic ceremony that happens, it might be a plant might present themselves as really wanting to work with this person.
Hmm.
So it's also collaborative. It's a very relational framework. We're not just going this plus this equals this. We're also seeing what the spirits want to do because these spirits are so multivalent. They have such a huge spectrum. Um, and yeah, they have their particular tests, like a Bob and Sana dieta. Afterwards, sex is what celibacy is a very important part of this process too. So, sex is one of the biggest tests that comes up afterwards when the period of celibacy is still required to let the dieta settle in place. It's like letting wet paint dry, kind of thing. And with Bob and Sana, if somebody is presented with a test around romance or around sensuality or around their emotional and energetic boundaries, it can also be an opportunity to pass the test and to firm up where in the past you might have had issues with that. So it really just depends.
Hmm. And is it that you want to diet one plant at a time? Is there sometimes a place for blend, like having two dietas running simultaneously? And can you be in dieta with a plant and drink ayahuasca at the same time? Like, how does that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can definitely diet and drink ayahuasca at the same time and work with the diet that's happening. I have dieted multiple plants at once. My first teacher, she would sometimes, once she gave me 3 trees at once. And part of the reason for this was because I was trying to heal some certain physical issues that these trees could help me with. I did find it hard to navigate which energies I was connecting with. Like, is this one? Is this that one? In terms of learning, and developing a strong connection so that this plant can be an ally and you can call on it and you can learn from it, one at a time is definitely less complicated.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah. So would you say, is it possible to diet ayahuasca? Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Ayahuasca, people diet ayahuasca. Um, out here, like if I think back, I probably had dieted around 20 something different plants
Mm,
over the last 10 years. And, looking back at that original question about what this change that happened, this lineage switch, this frequency shift, and the astrological correspondences to it. When we're sitting in the multidimensional field of the mariación, the effect of the ayahuasca, and there's visions and there's shapes and there's feelings and there's thoughts and there's physical somatic stuff moving. It's just an energetic, you know, field that we can perceive in many different ways depending what's going on. Sound
mm,
and frequency is the primary mode that this space is navigated through.
mm,
So that's why the singing is so important in ayahuasca ceremonies. And some people will have been to ceremonies with amazing musicians that are singing beautiful medicine songs. And don't get me wrong, those songs have an intention and a medicine and a prayer behind them. But energetically, I perceive there to be a real difference between that and an Icaro. And
mhm.
an Icaro is a song that is specifically communicating with the plant spirits and navigating the ayahuasca to affect change in the field and in the energy body of the participants. So when I talk about a lineage switch, I don't think it's a switch so much as you could look at it like I was studying um, kind of, I've actually used the analogy of like coding, computer coding,
Mhm.
as if I did this big degree in coding in one language,
Mm.
one coding language. And then it came time, karmically, not really by choice, for me to be absolutely drop kicked into a like PhD program. And now it's on the blockchain and it's in German. So
Yeah.
we're kind of doing the same thing, but it's just there's an evolution and all the geometries
Mm.
are shifting. And also because I'm now studying with people that literally speak a different language than my prior teachers.
Yeah. So I was in ceremony at Tierra Mítica, which you know of,
Mm-hmm.
Tarapoto, and the shamans, there were three shamans, little old Shipibo man and two little old women. So there's three of them singing Icaros. The Maloka, we were all outside, 17 of us lying down on our individual mats with our blankets under the open sky, trees around, and there's this little platform, and the three shamans are singing Icaros on. They give us the ayahuasca, we lie down, and then it's just silence, and the shamans drink as well, and there's just silence for about 20 minutes until they start to feel the medicine, and then they'll just start to sing. And it's like they're literally creating a tapestry, an energetic field or landscape or tapestry that is so real that me with my eyes closed, I start seeing the visions of what they're weaving with their sound. And at some point, it's They go down into these like drilling icaros where it's actually really uncomfortable, and some of the sounds is like and it's like drilling down, taking you to really kind of icky, sticky places, and then it'll kind of lighten up and shoo, shoo, and the sounds that they're making change, and then there's a gap where there's just silence, and it's like, oh my God, the visions kind of like take a pause, and there's this spaciousness, and suddenly I realized that everything I was seeing was created by the songs, the sounds of the shamans. It's so powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And part of the reason that they have that impact is not just the words that they're saying, but it's their dietas. It's their existing deep relationship with the plants, that the spirits listen to them because they're their friends, they're their allies. Their energetic body is already intimately woven with those spirits, and they can call them and they come and they listen. And this is, this is such an important, I think part of the reason that I've been moved into this particular lineage, which for me presents with a higher level of complexity in the way that the navigation is done. It's not to say it's more powerful or more effective in terms of like real life outcomes and how much healing you get. It's that there's more complexity.
Mm.
And at this moment in time on Earth, whatever we're doing, there's so many different mystery traditions, there's so many different ways to heal, to harm, to protect, to transform, to alchemize, to do all this kind of different work on these spiritual levels in many different traditions across the world. What I find interesting is that at this moment on the planet, we are stepping into a new paradigm, largely ushered in by technological advances,
Mm.
where the language of frequency, there's an opportunity for all of us collectively to remember and advance with that. And what I really like about this deep intelligence of plant medicine and dieta and what the people out here know is that there's already a highly complex organic language which already exists.
Ah,
And and it's the language of frequency, and you can navigate it and work with it just like coding a computer. But because we're on the verge of like AI and quantum computing and all of this massive technological changes, the question for me, or the way that it just sort of lands in me, is to never forget that it's not only a machine that can do that.
ha. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, we are speaking and breathing our reality into existence through sound at every moment, and we just don't have the eyes to see it. But ayahuasca opens up our eyes to see the power of our sound, our tone, our timbre. It's like the vibrations turn into colors, and we see the quality of what we're creating at any moment anyway, all the time.
Mm-hmm. And that is so, you know, Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus moving into Gemini, and Neptune um, soon with Saturn and Aries. This mini grand trine that's forming with the outer planets, and the outer planets being the transpersonal, avatars of massive collective evolution on planet Earth. The
Mm.
fact that all those outer planets are moving into these new signs, air and fire signs, and aspecting each other and ushering in all the new tech, all the cultural revolution, all the ideological shifts, and the way that that's all working together, it's more important than ever, I think, that for us to collaborate with that in positive ways, in ways that support sovereignty, that are rooted in love, that are harmonious rather than dissonant. To remember this frequency, technology, medicine that is so inherent to the indigenous human experience. Like
Mm,
that is how we survived this long on this planet. It's
mm,
through our relational capacity to navigate through frequency.
mm. Mm. Yeah, I just envisioned Pluto moving into Aquarius as like this big fat chess piece, like moving into new territory and opening up and emanating a different frequency. And us as humans, we're able to tune in and tap into that new frequency. And we are co-creators with the planets. It's like they're just making new frequency available, and we are still the creators, but we're co-creating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what did you feel with your ayahuasca goggles about Pluto moving into Aquarius? I remember you saying in New Zealand you were feeling like the architecture change in
Mm-hmm.
your vision space. I don't know if that
Yeah, yeah.
symbolized.
So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, so my first 9 years of apprenticeship was in the Flores lineage, which is Ashaninka, a different indigenous group, and Spanish mestizo. So those songs, those codes, that language of those Icaros that was being used to template my dietas in my energetic body had different geometries.
Mm,
They were the scaffolding of how the dietas were sitting in my body was different, even though they were many of the same plants. And if you think about the like in classical tantra, the use of mantra and yantra,
mm,
sound, and then the images that express different aspects of divinity, like a Kali mantra with a Kali yantra is this coded expression of that power and that intelligence manifests into this third dimension.
mm,
And it functions, even though Kali could be worshipped in many different ways, could be worked with and expressed and seen in many different ways. Now, working in the the Lopez Shipibo tradition lineage, they sing in Shipibo.
mm,
And so the Shipibo language has different geometries, and the Ikaros are transmitted in different ways. And if anyone's ever seen Shipibo traditional artwork and tapestries, I mean, I'm wearing some right now, it's very, very intricate and detailed. Um, Pluto moving into Aquarius, like for me, the big personal themes that came up in my dieta, I mean, I'm in a Mars annual perfection year. So I'm in this like, and coming from Aries, not Scorpio. So, every year you have a different planetary ruler coming from a different house of your chart. And for me, I'm in an Aries Mars year, which is like warrior energy, right? It's fiery. And I'm also Saturn sensitive because Saturn rules my ascendant, rules my chart. Saturn also rules Aquarius. So it's like the things that put all of that coming together, like a big thing that was coming up for me was the cultural and spiritual changes that need to happen for the collective. I was feeling like a very strong activism. I was feeling a very strong desire to participate more directly in social change, in protecting, defending, and uh, divesting from what I like to call dominator consciousness.
mm.
I
Yeah,
was really fired up.
yeah, yeah. I see Pluto as ultimately a purifier. Pluto's like got this purging quality. I see Pluto as this strong graha, this hook that gets you obsessed with something and takes you all the way down into the depths until he utterly destroys you. And in the death of that, there's the composting and then the rebirth and the transformation. But ultimately, I see it as a journey of purification. So Pluto in Aquarius is this purifying of social structures. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the way to purify the social structures, including online social structures, Facebook, Instagram, whatever else, as well as governments, all social structures, sometimes the way to purify them is to destroy that which is no longer serving. Yeah, it's a heavy
I,
journey.
I mean, ayahuasca is definitely a Pluto plant, right?
And you've got Pluto on your South Node, so it makes sense that you've spent years with this plant. I'm really curious to see the shift that happens to you when you're hit 42 and you start living more in that North Node. If your journey with ayahuasca is really like a big part of the first part of your life and purging out karma, Pluto on the South
Yeah.
Node.
Yeah, that relationship to power, because Pluto is also power, and Pluto is at home in Scorpio. Yes, I have Pluto in Scorpio on my South Node in Scorpio. I also have Mars in Scorpio, the other ruler of Scorpio. So death, rebirth, the transmutation of power, the merging with, and then the pulling apart, and that purification process that happens. Like 100%, I feel that my my the deconstruction, like, so what was basically happening as Pluto was moving out of my first house, the house of the self, of the body, of the identity, which is where I also have my sun, like my essential, the light that I am, and Venus, the woman that I am, everything I love and value, all of that, right at the end of Capricorn. That's where that sits in my chart. So the last little bit of Pluto in Capricorn was absolutely savage.
Hmm.
You saw it. Everyone close to me saw it. I lost a property, a marriage, a ton of vitality. The fatigue was a massive thing. My hair fell out. I was super depressed. It was just extremely hard on every level, and it had real material consequences in my life. As Pluto was making its final shift out of Capricorn, um, I did my first dieta in this new tradition
Wow.
with this new plant.
Hmm.
And at first it was all lovely. And then I drank a little bit more ayahuasca. And what happened was this new plant started dismantling and renovating all the previous dietas, going into them. And you can imagine a really elegant tapestry and someone going in and just pulling all the lines apart and just picking out all the gunk that was attached, all the accumulated stress that had sort of infected this prior work in ways that I was unaware of, really dismantling my perception on my own power, on what I'd achieved, what I'd accumulated, how experienced I was, just laid me bare. And I think it took about 16 ceremonies before I was able to drink. And I'm talking, I would drink a freaking teaspoon of ayahuasca and be like, I'm just going to meditate. Nah, purging for 4 hours, shaking, like, so, it's about the energy. It's not actually about the volume of the stuff you put in your body. Once you're actually open and connected, it's just that's just the physical medicine just unlocks the door, right? And this continued, like, it was very scary because I thought classic Pluto stuff, I was losing all that I'd gained. Like how can I be losing more? I've been stripped of my land, of my marriage, my body's changed, my money's gone, like stripping back to the bone. What? And now my precious dietas that I've accumulated, they're gone too. Like, there was such a sense of loss and disempowerment. But I knew that what Pluto had been showing me, it's like, let go or be dragged. You don't get to maintain control over this process. All you get to do is get on your knees and pray. You're going to die anyway, eventually. So just this is, it's like there was no, the resistance was being ground down. Very hard for a Capricorn. And then coming into this dieta, this opportunity, of course, an Aquarius woman comes into my life during this process. She's like, no, she's like, you're amazing. I see you. Wow, your rose dieta is so incredible. And it's interesting because the only dieta, the only strong connection that was not touched at all was the rose. And I gave myself that rose dieta. No one did it for me. I self initiated. And I dieted rose for 10 months. It was the longest diet that I've done. And Aquarius, coming into this Aquarius frequency, the shift from old school Capricorn top down hierarchical lineage structure, that kind of Saturn power of Capricorn, into Aquarian Saturn, so different, so much more decentralized, so much more quantum, so much more about your individual freak flag, your individual genius being an essential part of the collective, and that everybody needs to be their own unique kind of magical. And that's how we all lift each other up together.
Yes. Yes, the individual freak flag. I love that. I've got some friends who what's they're kind of like born around the year 2000 with strong Aquarius vibes. They've got Uranus and Aquarius, and
Mm.
they're just so whack. They're just there's this little sub-generation of humans that are just non-binary, not like they're so unique you can't put them in any box, and they're just breaking the boxes that have been around for how many hundreds of years. Yeah, and that's it. The yeah, the uniqueness, the collective uprising of unique individuals in a non-hierarchical way. It's opposite Leo, and Leo's like the king, the queen, and the decree, the CEO, the boss, and that hierarchy trickles down. But Aquarius is like, no, we're all equally valuable. We all have equal say. It's very much like consensus reality, power, wealth, Pluto, power and wealth, distributed evenly, equally to all the unique beings where no one is more special than the other, and yet they're all unique, freak, kind of quirky beings. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
because, of course, Uranus is the higher octave of Aquarius. So those kids with Uranus and Aquarius, they're tapped into that evolutionary high potential, that exalted level of Aquarius. You know, there's the Saturn Aquarius, which shows up,
Hmm.
like you said, in all those worldly systems. But the Uranian Aquarius, it's like the mind of God awakening, the kind of genius, electrical, liberating,
Yeah.
futuristic, you know. And this plant, this plant that I dieted, that has kind of ushered me into this new frequency and this new lineage of study, is a tree that has bioluminescent leaves.
Hmm.
So when its leaves fall on the forest floor, if it's a dry night and you go out at night, the ground is glowing like some avatar shit, you know. It's pretty magical. And ingesting that tree and getting to know its spirit, so much light, like a massive, for me, a really big Jupiterian frequency.
Hmm.
Um, and this tree was said to be extinct for a long time. There were none of them around, they were all gone. And then through a series of fated events, a tree was found. And this maestro reignited the lineage with the physical tree. There was some lineage holders who were like older, much older, that still had pipes made from the wood, ancestral pipes that had been passed down. But in the last 20 years, these trees have started physically reappearing.
Wow.
I believe that there's only like 5 of them, big established ones or something like that, that are known. and they're all in this area. There's one on the land that I'm on right now. I'm going to go and visit her after this. And that that influx of light, of cosmic light, is also aligned with this shift, right? Into Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini, Neptune and Aries, a new beginning. It's There's something happening where we're at such a collective turning point. Globalization of the economy, the global movement of goods and money has reached such a point. Things like the climate crisis, which affects everyone, we're reaching a point where the hierarchy that separates through privilege is breaking down, because we're just not going to be able to escape the impact collectively. So it's like you all need to sort it out, or you're all going to go down on the sinking ship together.
Mm, mm,
And I think for me, that's where that, in my dieta, there was some triggers because we're doing it in a group. That's not how it's traditionally done, even though I was trying to keep silence and keep separate. I was translating the classes that were being taught by the maestro. So inevitably, I was exposed to overhearing other people's conversations. And of course, there was just the right things that happened to frickin' set me off. And then I had to go away and meditate and digest upon those things. And I think what I really came out with was this clarity of also how I received a new name. I was renamed by this priest in Bali. Again, not something I put my hand up for. It just kind of happened and I went with it. But understanding that that name has a new frequency, and that when I speak that name to the spirits, when I introduce myself as that, when I embody that name and what it means, I'm also shifting into a new dimensional reality that is informing me in a very Aquarian way around like what to do, what to do with all of this power and these allies and all of this relational connection, right? Um, yeah.
Yeah. Do you notice that whatever happens in each retreat or ceremony is a microcosm of what's playing out in the collective? Like,
Oh, astrologically, I mean, when I was in Dieta, we had Jupiter move into Aquarius, into Cancer, and I'm going. This is a Jupiterian tree. I really feel like this tree has a big Jupiter frequency, and then we've got the Jupiter Sun Kazemi. That was beautiful. It was the solstice. So first we had the solstice. The Sun moved into Cancer. Then we had the Sun conjunct Jupiter a few days later in Cancer. And what is Cancer about? It's about the home. It's about the mother. It's about being safe and protected and nourished at home. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It's this big blessing force. And it's like, wow, thinking, oh, I mean, it was very euphoric and very beautiful. The quality of energy was gorgeous. But the main thing I was dealing with was like, Jupiter makes things bigger. And I was like, I feel really fucking fired up and over the top about protection and
mm,
about safety and about people's right to be safe at home. And what is home, and what are these overblown concepts of home that might get in the way of that motherly instinct to create sanctuary for people.
mm.
Um, rather, it was like, it's Jupiter's gonna be so beautiful. I'm like, it was, and yet also there's this.
Yeah, Jupiter's magnifying whatever it touches. And I feel there's a theme coming through of empowerment for mothers, home birthing, all of this. Yeah, the mother, the importance of the mother, and like new codes and new wisdom coming through about how to parent children, and also wisdom about how to parent ourselves, internal family systems, how to hold our own inner child, our own inner wounded boy and wounded girl, and to tap into our own mother who can hold them and soothe them, tap into our own father that can hold them and bring structure, and reparenting ourselves. Yeah.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, Jupiter, I mean, it's interesting to consider why is Jupiter said to be exalted in Cancer? Because we associate Jupiter with its signs of rulership, Pisces and Sag being more about like religion and ideology and truth and kind of these big celestial codes. But then Jupiter in Cancer really brings it down close to home, into the womb, into the nest.
Mm,
And it's like divine safety.
mm,
Like this planet is our home. Jupiter's associated with abundance. We have more than enough for everybody to be provided for on this planet. When, especially with where we're at technologically now, there's absolutely no reason for us to be living in material scarcity. The level of poverty that, for example, I see in the Amazon, the
mm.
fact that anybody is going hungry at this moment in time is purely an issue of consciousness. It's not an issue of anything related to like the actual resources available, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel the esoteric word for Cancer is nourishment, and
Mm.
Jupiter in Cancer just feels like this big mama bear hug that's just gathering, like Jupiter's expanding and Cancer's gathering in. It's just this like breathing and hugging everyone into the bosom of Cancer, making that safe nest. And nourishment, there's like a higher value that, yeah, we need to nourish humanity. And one of the things coming through about what's happening in Gaza is people are just saying, like, hey, there's violence, there's whatever's going on, and there are hungry people that need to be fed in Gaza right now. And there's this heartbreak for those who are hungry in the world, and this higher value and belief that, hey, we need to feed the people.
I really hope that on August 12th, when Venus, the lesser benefic, meets Jupiter, the greater
Mm,
benefic in Cancer,
mm,
at the degree of Sirius, the fixed star Sirius. I mean, this is phenomenal astrology, phenomenal, phenomenal. I hope that by then, I mean, I hope much sooner. I hope today, that those aid trucks will be let through.
mm.
And of course, the only reason that any of this is happening is because of a Jupiterian uh, scarcity, which is a lack of true spiritual nourishment. The way that ideology, for example, Zionism in its modern form, has gone so far down the road of identity, race, um, that story, as opposed to the fact that Judaism is also a religion with deep reserves of spiritual wisdom, incredible esoteric knowledge, and it's interesting, isn't it, that a lot of the Jewish people who are really against the way that this apartheid state has developed are the very devout, more they're the more conservative and like deeply religious Jews are a lot of the ones that are going Zionism. No, that's not the point. So I feel like Jupiter in Cancer, this whole subject of homeland and like what is the true spiritual, philosophical reality of home and nourishment.
Mm, mm.
And
Oh
it's
my
it's
God.
it's not to draw a line in the sand and be like, because I am of this blood, I get this and you don't, and that's why, because I'm entitled. Like that's the other thing where Jupiter gets to be a know-it-all and gets up on its dogmatic,
Zealous.
zealous train, which is besides the point.
Yeah, what's coming through for me now? We just did a 4-day gathering called Radical Human. There were only 8 people, it was very intimate. And
Love it.
yeah, one of the meditations was connecting with the earth and just coming home to the mother and connecting. My journey went inwards to connecting to just being at home in my body as just, yeah, a home. This vessel is a home for my soul. and I'm in my home wherever I am on Earth. And simultaneously, I'm back in the land of my birth. I was born in England, went to New Zealand when I was 1.5. I'm back and I'm feeling the expansion of reconnecting with my roots. And it feels really fucking good. And this benefic view of my motherland as well. So there's a beauty in it as well. Because I've judged my homeland a lot. I've got Moon conjunct Saturn, right? So it's like Saturn is judging my mother, my homeland, the feminine. It's like it's been a bit harsh in this in that part of my psyche. So it's like, oh, it's like I'm being nourished by Jupiter in Cancer in this like heart-opening, expansive feeling towards home in this land of my birth, home in my body, home on Earth, home in Gaia. Like it's time for us to reconnect spiritually with Papatuanuku.
Mm.
Mm.
And I think when we talk about astrology, we always like easily forget that planet Earth is in the middle, right? You know, she's Gaia. You know, I almost want to just like draw Gaia on to the
Yeah.
chart because when I'm doing embodied astrological work with people, one of the lines I often use in somatic activations and ritual work is my body is an extension of the Earth's body because that's the somatic orientation through which we can then start feeling the other planetary activations through the body.
Mm.
And you have a Cancer MC, right? So at some point you're going to have Jupiter crossing your MC and opposing your IC, but
Mm.
not for a bit, not till next year, right? Not till a bit later.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
Months. Yeah.
It's a whole thing, and it's interesting now being on this land with this tree and having just done a retreat facilitator. So now I'm working as a facilitator, supporting other people in their diets, and really noticing the way that um, the way that I'm needing to dance between. Sorry, there's just a little animal jumping, scratching at the door. Probably a dog or a pig. There's these like wild pigs that live here. Hello. Um, yeah, the way that I'm needing to dance between holding my own dieta, still allowing it to bloom because it takes a lot of time to settle. It's like planting a seed and it grows. And at the same time, recognizing that my dieta is not just for me. You know, it's not just something that
Ah.
I or that I get to keep, that I get to use to advance my individual thing. It's like this Aquarian piece again, and sometimes feeling a little bit like, oh, I just did this diet and I got all juiced up, and now I'm just like exhausted because I'm doing these retreats and I'm going to use it all up helping these people. And it's like, well, what else are you going to do? What? Can you hear that? Sorry, can you hear that noise?
Yeah.
These wild pigs, funny.
Fair. Yeah, this is a criticism that comes against towards a criticism of a lot of spiritual people doing spiritual things that are totally ungrounded in reality, and they're just like love and light, but they're not anchored in the body. And yes, there's some valid criticism of, doing your 25th cacao ceremony, um, in your like fancy new hippie clothes, but not actually like being a nice person at the supermarket or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, there's something that happens that I've noticed in retreats, in ceremony, in gatherings, in intentional spaces where we are creating a held container to like microdose or imbue or experiment and live and embody the energies that are at play in humanity, and we are like working through and transmuting energies that are active in the collective, where, yeah, feeling war and hatred and grief and rage in our bodies and moving it through and digesting and doing the work.
The alchemical process, being an alchemical node in the wider web of life, right?
And it does serve. I feel it serves. I feel it shifts. I feel it unlocks things. We're landing codes in these small groups that can then spread into humanity. And I'm curious about this particular point in the history of humanity is like we've been brewing this since 1965 of these, yeah, this consciousness work, these retreats, these shamanic initiations and magical, mystical medicine work ceremonies in these small groups, in these bubbles. And one thing we've been talking about is bringing the bubble into the rubble, is is bursting the bubble, is allow like so it's like we've needed time to curate and brew so that we are, yeah, doing our own inner work to the point where we can be anchored in soul, in our true self, in our knowing, in a way which is consistent enough that we are ready to then, like bring it into the world and stop being in our like cushy little bubbles. It's like it's almost getting like the lobster shell, it's almost getting a bit tight in the bubbles, like it's almost turning septic, the amount of like what's the word, like bougie, opulent
Comfort.
comfort, decadence, like privilege that we're kind of like, okay, we've done the work, and now how much are we just like continuing to masturbate in our own juiciness when we need to start? Like, at what point do we tip it out? And that feels like we're on the precipice of that.
I definitely think, the opiate like effect of Neptune and Pisces, the
Oof.
numbing, the numbing of comfort, the numbing of TV, the numbing of even spirituality that serves to take the edge off the suffering. I love doing yoga because it makes me feel so good, but I've never sat down to meditate. I just want to do asana to get me out of my head for 5 minutes, but I don't actually want to give anything up. I don't actually want to stop working for this predatory company. I actually want to maintain my privilege because there's horror. There's a greater horror just below the surface. And I believe that in February 2026, when Neptune and Saturn both meet in Aquarius, at 0 Aries, the first degree of the zodiac, that is gonna, you know,
Oh my God.
because imperialism and colonization and the way that the Western mind has taken global control
Hmm.
has come with the hyper individualism. It's come with the rationalism, the materialism, the separating of spirit from matter. That's all intrinsic to where Western culture is at this time. But the whole planet is full of people that it still have vibrant animist cultures that still experience things completely differently. I mean, even just looking at the three big theistic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, so interesting that like the fundamentalist branches of all three of those religions are very obsessed with the apocalypse, and they actually need the end of the world to happen to fulfill their theology. It's like this race towards the fucking end of the world. And that all of that is so rooted in this like sense of separation, this illusion of separateness and control, and that there's actually something to influence, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
As
So,
this, as this starts breaking down, the reality is we have to be willing to lose some security and some stability and some comfort.
hmm, hmm,
We have to be willing to lose a lot of security and stability and comfort if we want to see things change.
hmm. Yeah. 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 People don't want to hear that.
Get two Saturnians on a podcast, and we'll definitely start telling you things you don't want to
Yeah,
hear.
isn't your sun gate in the gene key of realism? I th
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We talked about this.
Oh
Me,
my
I'm
God.
like the ultimate buzzkill.
I love it. So Aries is the self, the creation of the self. Saturn is structures and like solidity and like a doubling down. So Saturn and Aries people, I notice are very, one thing I struggle with is their big sense of self, their selfishness. They're me first. I do it my way. I do it myself. So with Neptune coming to conjunct Saturn and Aries, I wonder if there's a dissolving, a dissolution of narcissism, like a breaking of the spell of narcissism in humanity. It's been coming up the last 5 years super strong. Narcissism. So many people are talking about this. And we have a very narcissistic culture, and even like Instagram and so much of our world promotes narcissism in a way.
And
Is
rewards
that
it.
what's that?
And rewards it.
What's it? Totally, totally. It's like, is that bubble gonna burst? Is the dream going to dissolve? Is the spell of our separation, our individuality going to start to dissolve with this conjunction? I'm curious because the last time that Saturn and Neptune were conjunct was 1989 in Capricorn, and that is when the Berlin Wall came down.
Mm.
It's like Capricorn structure, a physical wall was
Yeah.
dissolved by Neptune coming into contact with Saturn. It's like the dissolving of boundaries, of
Mm.
structures that had been there for time in matter. So
Mm.
when Saturn and Neptune come to conjunction again, like it's a big deal. And so, yeah, and the theme of Aries, it's like, are we going to dissolve our like the industrial military complex, Saturn and Aries? We
Please.
dissolve the our our dreams of war and aggression.
I love what you've said about the narcissism piece, because if we dissolve the illusion of the narcissistic self,
Mm,
the small self, the self that is limited, the limited self, then we also have the Neptunian connection to unity consciousness, because Neptune takes us into the oneness, right? What if it's if as the small self, the narcissistic self, the spell of narcissism is dissolving, the true self is revealed in new ways?
yes.
And because it's been aspected by Pluto and Aquarius, part of the true self is not separate, is not the separate self. It's an individual manifestation
Mm,
of the collective tapestry. So
mm,
there's that piece, flowing in, sextiling in, strengthening it. And I think in February at the conjunction, Uranus will have actually popped back into Taurus for a moment. It's in Gemini right now, but it will have popped into the late degrees of Taurus for the last time. And for me, Uranus and Taurus has been massive about new currency. It's been crypto, mass Taurus money, Uranus tech, innovation, liberation from, constraining systems. So also recognizing the way that we hook ourselves into, like, what makes us secure, what makes us safe, how do we get our material needs met, do we have cash, do we have food, do we feel like we've got what we need. When Uranus moves back into Gemini and we're really sitting in that, um, there's such a huge opportunity, but that's why things like doing a dieta are important, because it trains us to be uncomfortable and to open up, this sort of like training our mind, body, and spirit to navigate these kinds of changes, gets us ready to be in the world to navigate these like bigger collective changes. And unfortunately, we do have a very uninitiated population right now. I think COVID, the Saturn Pluto conjunction in 2020, it kind of cracked open the veil for a lot of people. But again, this is me, the gate of realism. If you're still fucking crying about COVID, you need to brush yourself off and redirect your attention to the present moment, because that was just the start.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lingering in the PTSD. We had Saturn conjunct Neptune in Capricorn, COVID. Then Saturn moved into Aquarius, and we had a
Pluto.
progression exactly at the zero, that whole the great mutation.
Yeah.
And then we had this like everyone's isolated, no one can see their friends. Saturn's in Aquarius, Saturn's not letting you see your mates, it's all isolated. Then Saturn moved into Pisces, and we did the healing. Everyone got trauma therapy. Everyone was like, okay, I'm resting, I'm recovering from COVID. That was hard. Let's be Piscean and cry and hug each other and make music and like feel like we exist again. When Saturn gets into Aries and squares Capricorn, that's the turning point. That's like the first quarter moon. It's like no more lingering in that process. It's time to pivot. It's time to make choices. It's time to step out. That happened. What are you going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that conjunction in 2020 between Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter,
Mm.
like Saturn Jupiter conjunction, Saturn Pluto conjunction with the South Node in Capricorn, that was all around 20 degrees, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
So
was
when
just after my birthday. No, just before my birthday.
so when
Mm.
Saturn, who's now in Aries, at 1, 2 degrees Aries, when Saturn finally gets to around 20 degrees, it'll be squaring that original point. So
Mm.
we're still kind of like a year and a half, maybe away from that, a year away from that. And my
Mm.
sense is that right now we're in a breathing point with Jupiter in Cancer. It's like time to nourish ourselves and fully recover after COVID, because I feel like yeah, I got fucking rolled with COVID. I had COVID twice. By the time COVID made it to New Zealand, it was like a mutated, way less intense strain. And I still got fucking rolled. And it still took me like a year and a half to come back into like that kind of baseline. And now only the last 2 or 3 months do I feel like I've been tapping into my full vitality again.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, there's revolution coming with Uranus and Gemini, trine Pluto and Aquarius. There's revolution coming. And we're in this like breathing time to rest. And part of like beginning the revolution, I feel, is like yoga nidra, to like rest, recalibrate, nourish our bodies, nourish our nervous systems,
Relax.
relax to and it's a lot. And yeah, I could go on a whole tangent about this, because the original Pluto Uranus conjunction in 1965 was in Virgo, the nervous system. So this
Mm.
whole 140-year cycle that we're in, which we're coming into the trine and reactivating the energies that were alive in 1965 with the revolutions that happened then,
Mm.
that started in Virgo. And this whole cycle has had this flavor of nervous system, PTSD, from the Vietnam War,
Mm.
anxiety, mental health. Like, no one knew about any of these things before this time. And
Mm.
it's even like recycling, cleaning up the pollution and the earth. Like, I really feel like the next 3 years is going to be pivotal, and new technologies coming through to clean up the oceans, clean up our nervous systems. And so many people have been crashing with burnout, adrenal fatigue, coffee, overstimulation, and people are dropping the caffeine and coming into maca. adaptogens, resetting the adrenals, yeah, rest, relaxation, nourishment. And yeah,
Mm.
as you say, when Saturn comes into that 20-degree Aries point and starts squaring whatever happened in COVID, shit's gonna be on again.
I think, Neptune also has to do with altered states and pharmaceuticals and drugs, right? So, right now, I believe that there's legislation happening in the UK around, they've just signed off on something called the like pandemic protocol. Things, the subject of vaccines, the subject of chemicals, the subject of Aries, sovereignty around drugs. Like, why is it illegal for me to take mushrooms that grow out of the earth,
Ah,
but some like untested pharmaceuticals, I'm being mandated to have them. All of these kinds of subjects coming up as well around also pollution, plastics, the use of all of these chemicals that are, and saying that there's a connection to Virgo. Of course, Virgo is agriculture and healing and medicine and plants. I think these subtle medicines, like everything I'm talking about with the dieta, I love that we started with that and we've segued here. These plants, these technologies are so freaking powerful,
mm,
but you have to give them space. I'm not like drinking coffee and masturbating and watching TV and taking uh, pharmaceutical medication and expecting to be able to diet.
mm.
There are limits, Saturn, to how things work. So um yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot to face, and I think a big thing with Pluto and Aquarius, which I've been saying for ages, is that where the power was is not where the power will be. Countries that have held for a long time big influence are not going to be holding the same influence. We've got the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, doing things economically to divest from the US dollar. What's happening in the Middle East, I just don't know. At this point, it seems like the Palestinians are lambs to the slaughter, and it's just revealing the corruption it's just revealing the true nature of loyalty is not about ethnicity, it's about these financial and military arrangements. I actually had this vision of a table of people, and they were all these dudes sitting around a table, and they were doing like a backroom boardroom kind of deal, and it was like they were all from the nations that are all meant to be against each other, but it was like, haha, that's a big fucking lie. Actually, there's like a Saudi dude and a Chinese dude and an American dude and a Russian dude, and they're all filling each other's pockets while the rest of us are believing this lie that it's about nation versus nation and caring about it's like it's not. Your leaders don't care about you, the people. And this is the Pluto and Aquarius piece, right? It's like
Oh,
waking up
fuck.
from that spell as well.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, this is going down some some rabbit holes, but taxation, taxation. Like fuck
Yeah.
taxation. Fuck tax. Harvesting. It's like being in the land of England again and tapping into the history of lords that would rule over peasants, that were farmers, that would farm crops, and the lords would take a percentage of their crops to feed themselves and be merry in exchange for protection against other lords that might come and kill them. And it's all just based on fear and scarcity, fear of survival and wars against each other. So it's like if humanity finally gives up war, if the illusion and the dream, the obsession with war dissolves, then what does that mean for protection, for taxation? And
Mm.
taxation, this like what that's evolved into from the lords taxing their peasants. Now we've got governments that are indebted to the International Monetary Fund, and in order to pay off the interest on the loan that they took from the IMF, they're having to tax their people to then harvest all this wealth to then not even for the governments. The governments, in a way, kind of like in the middle, kind of like a little bit powerless because they've then got to give most of that money up to the international banks, and it's just fucked.
And
So just
this is why like people need to understand imperialism and why decolonization work is important, because those countries are have been set up to stay poor, right, and to be exploited. And you know, you and I are sitting here living our lives because we were lucky enough to be the way that we are, because we were lucky enough to be born in countries that are set up to profit from the exploitation of other countries, right? And we're both white, and we both received free education, and we both speak English. And that inherent privilege
mm,
that can really insulate us,
mm.
it the illusion of the comfort that we were talking about, at some point it is starting to, it's not comfortable anymore. um it's not really comfortable, actually, comfortably numb.
Yeah,
And like look at
yeah.
the opiate crisis in the US, like fentanyl, literally painkillers, just killing off the poor. And that's because the government allowed big pharma, the cousin of the military industrial complex, to flood these highly addictive painkillers into the market, the Oxycontin thing and all of that, which happened. But it's a class war.
Mm,
That's why it's happening. So the big recognition for me in all of this is is the web of life and the relationality, with visible and invisible, other than human and human life,
mm.
and the interdependence. But people aren't going to get it intellectually. You don't just get it by listening to you and me talk. It might open a door in your heart. You might feel something as you're listening to us. But the way you really get it is you go out and you sit on the ground,
Mm.
or you drink some medicine, or you have to do something. And Saturn in Aries is like, you have to do something.
Yourself.
Saturn is doing, like,
Mm,
yeah,
mm,
we have to take action. We have to reactivate. Yes, I love what you're saying about the deep inhale and the rest and the nourishment, but doing that to fill up the tank, knowing that activating the nervous system, taking action, and getting back on the front line of change, and doing things, is also going to have to happen very soon.
fuck yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and a big word that's been coming up recently is resilience with Saturn and Aries. It's like working on my core, my resilience within myself. How do I stand in the face of adversity?
Conflict.
Conflict, yeah. And that quality of Aries, the ram, who enjoys the challenge and wants to butt his head up against conflict or challenge to because he enjoys the charge. And
The
we've been,
vitality, right? The life force.
yeah, we've been talking about charge the last few days and how to hold charge in the body. And
Mm,
that requires resilience as well, and resourcing, and being able to tap into the earth, stand with our feet on the ground, and discharge instead of horizontal charge, like I'm triggered with you. It's like, okay,
mm,
how do we send that into the earth? How do we connect with our core? How do we connect with the black hole and send it to the black hole and be resourced from the void and nourished from the void so that we have the capacity to not get bowled over by charge when it comes towards us.
mm.
Mm,
Sounds like yoga, sounds like shamanism, sounds like animate initiation,
mm,
which has been missing. I just did oh my God, what time is it? Okay. I have to go soon. I just have been working my way through this Ceres symposium that Andrea Michelle Heckel put together with some incredible astrological presenters, talking about Ceres, the dwarf planet, and how when Ceres got promoted to become a dwarf planet, Pluto got demoted from a planet to a dwarf planet. And mythically, Ceres is the mother of Persephone, who got either abducted or went to the underworld to marry Pluto. And Ceres is massively connected to the mystery traditions. You know, it was Demeter, Ceres, that the Eleusinian mysteries were working with when Greek culture was still animate, when there was still psychedelic initiation in Western culture. It's like the psychedelic roots of Western culture pre where we are now. And she's an agriculture goddess. She's the seasons. She's a cyclical time, you know, getting out of the spell of linearity, and like we're in this race to the finish line. And what is the finish line? Death, and maybe some kind of salvation by some abstract god. Not that we would be composted back into that which we love, which is all our relations. Um, and so Ceres and her role, and like she's in Aries right now. There's also something around that too, around the return of the mystical to the Western mind. And not that we have to reinvent the wheel with everyone being star seeds and it being new age and 5D. It's already there. It's already there in your body, in your DNA, in your lineage. And of course, we can contextualize it and apply it to life here and now. But it's like we keep thinking we're so arrogant that we think we have to keep reinventing the wheel, when actually there's a lot of just remembering to do. And I think Saturn always does plug us into lineage. Even in Aries, it plugs us into lineage.
Hmm.
So where are we taking our lineage forwards,
Hmm.
instead of just getting sucked into like identity politics?
Hmm. Hmm. So I'm guessing you've got something in 5 minutes, is that right?
No, in a little while, but I'll need to like eat and breathe and before the next thing.
Okay. Do you have willingness and capacity for a few more minutes?
Yes, I do. I love that you've adopted that. Isn't it good? Have you been using it in the world?
Oh my God, I've been using it so many times, and you're so right. It's
Trademark
so
me,
fundamental.
willingness and capacity.
Oh, and every time I'm like, fuck, Sancya, you're so right.
It's so simple.
Oh God, it's so simple. So yeah, I love your Saturn on my sun is a strong teacher for me. Okay, so yeah, I feel like we need to do a whole another podcast and probably 25 more.
And a retreat.
So I guess there's just a couple of pieces that feel really alive in me right now that I want to share. One of them is Aquarius, Gemini and fuck Uranus and Gemini. So Pluto and Aquarius, I've noticed recently. Oof. Well, it feels edgy to say this. Ah,
Say it. It's the sci-fi queering of Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius.
well, there seems to have been a sense of heavy-handed kind of oppression coming in the online spaces and Facebook, Instagram, some censorship,
Queering.
some censorship of particularly a couple of people who are really leading the charge, bringing
Mm,
through something new, bringing through something which is truth, which is soul, which is love, which is awakening, which is also got this flavor of coming from the black hole, coming from like this deeper void, like there's this thing that wants to come through that has been shut down that I've noticed just in the last week, especially. And as we have been gathering here talking about revolution and contemplating Uranus, the awakener in Gemini,
mm.
is awakening through, yes, new ideas, innovation through Gemini concepts and openness to new ideas, and something about human to human contact and the revolution spreading through. I talk to you as my friend, and you talk to your two friends, and they talk to their two friends, and they talk to their two friends, and this very organic Gemini people talking to people, just sharing, just bubbling out in person. Like if if the online spaces aren't quite as safe and loving and open as accommodating as we might like, maybe there's a charge and there's life coming through to just go back to talking as humans one on
Yeah.
one and connecting
and
again.
voice, right? The transmission of voice and frequency, because
Mm,
um, yeah, surveillance. I mean, with technology and Pluto and Aquarius, surveillance is through the roof. There's like security cameras on billboards in New Zealand that the police are using to track people's number plates. And they're saying, and then it's linked up to the system that's in supermarkets. And they're saying it's because that they think that too many garages are giving out registrations and warrants on vehicles that shouldn't have them. But it's complete bullshit, because we know that New Zealand is a guinea pig for new tech, because we're the perfect size and we're the perfect, this kind of stuff. Surveillance and also censorship. Now they've just legalized that in the UK, you have to upload ID to use social media for age verification. Digital IDs are going to be coming in. So surveillance and censorship is massive. So, what is the response to that other than new sovereign tech, things like Signal, like encrypted comms, using the blockchain for financial transactions, different things like that? And yes, human to human, spread
mm,
that rumor. And
mm.
unconventional relationships, Gemini, the twins, the paradox, the inner other. I'm Uranus, it's the inner queering, it's the like non-conventional relationship formats, because Uranus is it's very Kundalini, it's very like the sexual, like when I had Uranus opposite Mars, got some stories from that time, it was a vibe. And so, but Uranus is, it's the liberation that comes from that. So new liberating forms of community and connection and unconventional ways of relating and sharing and dispersing information in response to oppression, censorship, surveillance, and so on and so forth. 100%.
Yeah, and the image that I get is I love Richard Tarnas's secondary naming of Uranus as Prometheus, the one who stole the fire from the gods and gave it to man. And there's this image of like the lightning coming, stealing the fire or receiving the fire and just spreading it person to person.
Mm.
Oh, it just feels so juicy. It feels so exciting.
Start right now.
Right. Okay, so that's one piece. The other piece I want to just flesh out a bit more is this Neptune and Aries. We talked about, yeah, dissolving the spell of narcissism to individual self. And something that was coming through is this Neptune being like the shadow form of Neptune can be like blurring and escapism and just numbing out. But there's the higher qualities of Neptune is this thinning of the veils and this transcendence and this connecting to spirit. So what I'm imagining is, yeah, the true self, dreaming our true self into reality,
Mm-hmm.
dreaming the sovereign self into reality, and then Saturn anchoring it.
Mm. Love
It's
it.
it's like that I am the Atma, the I am self, the true self, the sovereign self. And part of
Mm.
that sovereignty is, yeah, like I feel like humanity's moved through so much of the codependency. We had like North Node Aries, South Node Libra a couple of years ago, and that was like just emptying out karma of codependency, enmeshment, coming into sovereignty. And now it's like, okay, it's time to breathe and dream through the sovereign self, sovereign, the true king.
I love it so much. Our true oracular capacity, the dream of the true self, and like understanding our full creative capacity, and that our instincts and our desires, Aries, are these very important signals, right, around that too. Not just, it's so easy to kind of like be like, oh, your desires are just like pulling you off track, or they're not spiritual. But I think Neptune also being so creative and so imaginative, new music, new stories, new myths, dreaming new visions of what is possible. Part of the reason we're experiencing this dystopian sci-fi tech bro Elon Musk kind of like thing is because we've been fucking telling stories about it since the 1920s, 30s, the dystopian sci-fi imagining. So again, the Indigenous Australians talking about the dream time, working with the plants, and in the Dietas, the dreams, and Neptune's all about the dreams. The dreams show you so much around what's happening. And dreaming hygiene as well, and actually having energetic boundaries around the numinous and structures that we sovereignly choose. Digital hygiene, I think this next gen, like the Uranus and Aquarius kids that you were talking about, like they know, they get it. It's aging millennials like me that are freaking addicted to Instagram. My sister, who's 24, who just wrote her master's on eco poetics and colonization and the myth of eco and narcissus, so on brand for this chat. She's like, not. I mean, she is, but she's not like me. Her digital hygiene is way better than mine. And I think we can't underestimate young people
Mm.
and how quickly they pivot and adapt and grow and change. So um the Saturn and Aries kids are going to have one hell of a Saturn return.
Whew.
Get ready for a reality check, people.
Yes.
And are also going to do incredible things. We need to listen to them. We need to pay attention to what's coming through, because they're just like in it, transmitting it here and now.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yay. That feels complete.
Wow. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks. I didn't even know that I thought all of those things until we started talking.
Uh,